Hey everybody, it's Michael Martin. The importance of sitting on your hand can't be overstated. Actually, sit on both of your hands. You know, you read from the old timers, they said they sit on their hands when they're in their winners and they let the trends move on. At the end of the day, though, it's also applicable in the types of markets that we're in right now. I got a lot to catch up on. Um, and thank you for all your emails and your comments. In these types of markets that are super choppy and look like they're rolling over, you can be lured in by the volatility and the excitement of that. But you have to be careful that you don't get chopped up because sometimes, as some of these institutions are unwinding their positions, they're looking to sell into the strength. So if you're following headlines and be like, oh, this is finally some good bullish news on any of the Magnificent Seven that you might be trading, or the MNQs or this and that, the moves are kind of short lived. So you have to be much quicker if you're a short term trader to kind of take your profits when you can. But the point I'm getting at is if your trade setup isn't there, the best thing to do is to also sit on your hands. What do I mean by that? Well, be patient, right? So you could read Jesse Livermore and a million other people like myself who have said when you have winning trades, let them run for as long as possible. And that kind of applies to more longer term traders, I understand. But for me, I would be inauthentic with you if I said that I had some kind of magic trade setup. The best way for me to amplify my cash was to sit in my winners for as long as possible. Now that does mean pullbacks during certain days of the week, but I had faith that the move was going to continue. I knew where my uncle point was. I always trailed with a protective stop to knock me out so I wouldn't give back everything. But I had to get used to having that feeling that my unrealized gains were at risk. And that was a big one because you don't want to get comfortable taking small gains. If you do that, you're going to be a small trader for a long, like forever. But in these kinds of markets that are very, very choppy and look like they're pulling back and rolling over, you can also sit on your hands by not forcing trades that you shouldn't be in because you want the action. You want to be involved in the trade. Now, I understand how that feels. You're like, well, Michael, if I'm not trading, I can't be making any money. But you have to remember that as a speculator, your first rule is to not lose, right? I haven't traded in 2 weeks. So if you feel like every day I have to, and this happens with the short termers who trade in, like I said, the ES, the MNQs, this and that, you feel like you have to be involved in the market every day. That's categorically false. You do not have to be in the market every day. So what's the psychological lesson? Well, you have to consider what are the feelings that you have to feel when you have to be patient, right? I've talked about that on the show once before, at least once before, because patience makes people uneasy, right? They get anxious. They feel like they're missing out on opportunity. So what do? They start looking through social media, trying to find new setups, new names, because they're forcing. And what you find is that when you're in that space, you're satisfying an emotional need, not a financial one. So when you think about what your job is as a trader, doesn't matter if you're trading on 1 minute bars or if you're a long-term trend follower, your job is to manage risk. And sometimes that risk means taking a time out and not being engaged in the market at all. And that's going to help you preserve your capital because just like, you know, in athletic endeavors and sports, whatever points you don't give up on the scoreboard, you don't have to earn back to tie the game, right? Meaning, if you go into a drawdown by forcing trades and being a bonehead, which, look, you could easily do, I've done it, you find yourself in spots like, how the hell did I get here? Why did I put this damn trade on? And so, and you'll see, like, what did you expect from putting on the trade that you shouldn't be in, right? Because you were forcing the issue versus what you ended up taking, which was a loss. And that's a great learning experience. That's why I've said, learning to not just learning to sit on your hands, but the doing of the trading is going to teach you as much as any teacher possibly could. You know what I'm saying? To help you manage risk and help you figure out, what's the Johnny McGorry with your overall ethos and what's your game plan. So I spend an enormous amount of time thinking about things and what I want to accomplish, and that's how I end up manifesting. But part of that discussion is I can't step in and just putting on trades because I feel like I'm missing out. Depending on what you're using for screeners and how things end up on your wish list, so to speak, your watch list, you can always work on that issue to make sure that you don't miss out on those trades so you don't have the feelings of missing out because you know that whatever you're doing to rake the data, as I say, whether you're screening for average daily trading volume, your certain market cap, or maybe because of your capital, you're looking at certain share prices, or if you are, if you're using equities, you want to have, relative strength in there for sure. If you're into longer term trend kind of stuff, you can basically say, maybe ADX, you know what I mean? Like there's a million ways to skin the cat. You could also do something that's super easy and look at the 52-week highs. It isn't sexy, but it's simple, and it's the numbers are bona fide, and you can get them, basically for free on any website. So I don't necessarily think you need to be completely jacked up by having to spend a lot of money on certain services. There are a lot of really good services out there. I'll probably be talking about them, coming up. That if I was using or more active, I would certainly be using them. So some of them I don't use, but it's just because I don't trade that asset class. You know what I'm saying? We're mostly futures here. So, but if it's beneficial to the audience, like when you send in comments and questions, I tend to listen and see, what it is that I could do. I don't foresee turning this into an interview channel. But I tend to be open-minded. So with that, think about, you want to get off to a good start. There's really two parts to trading. It's like I need to make gains, but I also need to not lose. So when you can force yourself to be super patient and write that out. Think about, well, let me finish my thought. When you can force yourself to say like, okay, listen, I am not going to put on suboptimal trades. If all of the criteria that I need in order to enter an order or to put an alert in, because sometimes you might put in an alert before you actually put in, a particular buy stop or what have you. If all the criteria aren't there, why would I take the trade? Like, and investigate that. What is it? Because typically, like we said here on the channel, we're kind of famous for saying, really, there's two parts to every trade. There's the emotional and psychological, and then there's the financial part. And so if you know what your rules are that you would need to see line up, if all the stars had to line up based on what your criteria are, why would you enter a trade otherwise, right? And so to me, it's kind of simple. The only other answer is it's like you're bored, right? And this happens to everybody. I have, my buddies on, when I used to go to the floor all the time and days that were super low vol, like low activity, they'd be sitting there doing crossword puzzles and Sudokus, and, that there would be any activity whatsoever. And so some of them would find themselves just putting on trades just out of sheer boredom. So get used to, unless, and certainly you're a short seller and you want to incorporate that into your trading plan, which you can do easy. It's certainly a skill to have that you should have, I think, because it helps you understand, the forces of buying and selling for sure. And it'll help you understand when you can see on the chart that, markets are rolling over, like, for example, in NVIDIA, or in like sugar, for the futures traders out there. And certainly cocoa, some of the softs have pulled back. The, cotton hasn't really done much. It's certainly gone down. So again, you could make money that way, and it's kind of slow and steady. But the point of the matter is that there's going to be a lot of people who have come through like the, Q1 and have lost, I don't want to say a lot of money, but lost money that they shouldn't have lost. And I had to learn to outgrow that. So I didn't it's not like I was in shame, but I was humiliated, even though no one really knew what I was doing because I was by myself. I felt humiliated even being alone. and saying like, what a jerk, like what am I doing this for? Like I'm trying to make money, why am I forcing things? So you can't necessarily think that you're missing out on an opportunity if it's not part of your original game plan, right? You can't be Sybil with 17 personalities if you come to the trading desk every morning. I think you have to pick a spot, pick one strategy, and learn to really smash it. Now, if you're at a professional shop and you have simulators and resources out the wazoo, that's a different ball of wax. The majority of people watching and listening here are solopreneurs who are doing this at home and trying to figure it out, just like I was, many, many moons ago. So that's who this is kind of geared to. And it's not to say anything about anyone's, professional setup. The resources are very, very different. So it might be possible over time for a man or a woman to sit at a trading desk and learn their criteria for, pre-market strategy, you know, um, opening range strategies. What happens if you look to institutions kind of try to support their positions during the day, during lunch? You can look at VWAP, pullbacks, and then retracement there, then closing strategy, and then aftermarket activity. So any of those you can have legitimate plans for, but I think again, coming back to the point of sitting on your hands and having patience, you should really try to find one thing first. Do one strategy, learn to nail that, and then add. If you remember the story, when I started, I walked in thinking I could trade any asset class on any particular time frame, and I was just so fantastically wrong on every front that I had to, recalibrate the system, so to speak, and start new, start fresh. That story's been well documented. So don't feel humiliated if you walk in and you're trying to do too much, right? Be the patience aspect for trading is underestimated how important it is. So, sitting on your hands when you're in winning trades is a good thing. You don't have to worry about a certain pullback during a day. Sitting on your hands when the market environment is not conducive or amenable to your trading style, it's not the right time to start designing and developing a new trading style. That's a quick way to lose a lot of money for no particular good reason. It's one thing if, you're in a trade and all of a sudden some news hits the tape and it reverses course. But I'd like you to start thinking like how that's not necessarily a really big deal. I've been in trades that go up and come back and go up and come back and go up and come back. The main thing is that it keeps going up though over the longer period of time. And then those are the kinds of trades that are, I don't necessarily believe in hero trades because those are the ones, the flip side of that coin are the ones that could also put you out of business. But I do think that there's a clever way to stay in the move, trail structure or trail a percentage, right? And you can vacillate. I'd still do that. If there's no structure, you have to use percentage. If there is structure, you can trail structure. But as long as you define what that is, that's okay. That's legit. I don't think you have to stick to just one. But trying to invent a new strategy because you feel like you're missing out is certainly something that you should do in a simulator and not with live money or your real money account. Because I think, to be truthful and not to sound this way, you're just not prepared to win at that point. You haven't put the time in. And you've never seen somebody, you know, find their way in first place in any endeavor in life by acting out of desperation. Doesn't happen. If you follow the political scene, you see this alive and kicking as well. Complaining, right? Complaining, you're not going to complain your way into office, right? You're not going to complain your way into an elected position. It's a weak way of saying like, I don't have anything else, so I have to complain about the situation. And I know what it's like to feel, powerless, but the better thing to do for traders is to sit on your hands, be patient, or investigate new strategies to take into account the new market environment. Now, this might be new for some of you in that you haven't experienced these market environments, and so that's great. It's part of the hazing process. So investigate the trading models that could work, but do that in your paper trading. Do that after hours. I wouldn't spend a lot of time, trying to reinvent the wheel. And it's okay if several weeks go by before you put on a trade, because it's far better to miss an opportunity. And I don't want to call it an opportunity, but there might be people who know how to make money in these types of markets, and you're just not there yet. That's okay, right? Give yourself permission to not do stupid things with your money. And that'll end up saving you via lowering what your potential drawdown could be, right? Because again, let's like talk about sports. You don't want to be coming into the fourth quarter of a football game down 21 nothing, because now you need to get 3 touchdowns that you haven't been able to get for the first 3 quarters just to bring the game into a tie. So there's a point where you just fall behind. It becomes very, very difficult to bring your account back up to what that high water mark was, unless, of course, you're regularly funding your account, which really isn't a half bad idea anyway. Like once you know that your system has positive, or system trading rules, whatever they are, has positive expectancy, adding to that account is building up your assets, right? That's a smart move. Anyway, I've been just on a personal note, I've just been completely slammed. I haven't forgotten, the audience here. I appreciate all of you who have subscribed, and there's just only so much time in the day that I can get these things done, and I don't like to do anything in life that I can't do consistently. So I'm going to try to have at least one video per week. I'll see what my time. There's a budget constraint on my time right now, but I will try to find, whatever I can do, 15, who knows, maybe 30 minutes. Because it's not just the recording of the video. You got to get the thumbnails. You got to do all this other bullshit around it that is the gigantic, time-consuming element of it. So I appreciate everyone's feedback. I read all the comments. I've responded to everybody. If you have things that you're working on, obviously you're struggling, drop a comment, and I'll try to get to it and think about probably putting a couple of themes together inside, one video, because I just don't have the time to be doing. I can't do them every day, not right now. Also, on last week I was interviewed by a guy named Jason Shapiro. You might have read about him in Jack's book, Unknown Market Wizards. He's chapter 2, I believe, page 50, and that's Crowded Market Report. So you can see that interview over at Jason's channel. Good, great guy, stand-up guy, very clever trading strategy using commitment of traders and catching the turns. Really good interview. It was about an hour long, and I will look forward to reciprocating and having other chats with him on this channel in the future. But it's a good interview, and that should already be up on his channel. As always, I appreciate you being here, and if you have any questions or comments, drop them in the comments section, and I'll see you next time.